We cannot welcome the light without first plunging ourselves into the darkness. From noon onward, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. This past week was supposed to be the beginning of the opening of the new baseball season. And we were supposed to hear those beautiful words proclaimed, "Play ball." And yet, this year, no balls were thrown, no people gathered in stadiums, no players came to the field. We must, in order to welcome the light, be willing to enter into the darkness. And yet it's difficult for us to do that. And yet this pandemic that is part of our life every single day is inviting us to enter into the mystery of darkness, into the mystery that brings with it uncertainty and questions and fear. The problem is, we already know the end of the story. And that's the difficulty every year when we gather on this Palm Sunday to hear the reading of the Passion. We automatically, our minds do, we automatically go to the end of the story. Because we know what the end of the story is about. We know that the end of the story is about light, and it is about resurrection, and it is about new life. And so the temptation then for you and I is to go right to the end of the story. But this week that we call holy invites us to enter into the mystery that is darkness. Something tells me it's going to be less difficult for you and I to do that this year, because we're not going to be able to gather with our community of believers in our churches where things are familiar, but rather we will have to find a new way to commemorate this incredible mystery of death and of darkness that leads to life and light. So let us not be afraid this week to enter into the mystery of the darkness. Let us join with Peter to recognize that his fear led him to denial, and Judas's fear and greed led him to betrayal, and Pilate and his wife's fear led them to wash their hands of any responsibility at all. You see, that's what fear does. But it's okay to be afraid. But we need to enter into that darkness that these days invite us to do. And let us allow ourselves, as we are immersed in this darkness and the uncertainty, because we don't know when this is going to end or even how it's going to end, this pandemic that is ours, that we are invited to live with each and every day. But one thing we can be certain of is that God has entered into the darkness. God has entered into the mystery of our lives. God has entered into all that we experience, all of our fears and anxieties and worries. So let us grab hold of the God who gives us life. As we enter into the darkness of these days, let us as believers know that one day we shall joyfully hear the words, "Play ball again." And we shall joyfully hear the words of loved ones whose voices we see not on a computer screen but in person. And one day we shall joyfully welcome the light that is ours in Christ. But let us first plunge ourselves into the darkness.